All right, good evening. Welcome everyone to tonight's presentation, the things you must do to be a successful day trader. I'm going to talk for 45 minutes to an hour, much like the other webinars that we've done. And I'll shed some light into the world of day trading, whether you want to be a full-time career stock trader or maybe do it a little bit on the side. I think you'll learn something about the process and the sort of things that I do every day. This is a trade from today, and we're going to go into the details of what this represents tonight. But the entry signal was this morning, shortly after the open, and the stock ended up moving up quite nicely, making about $800 for every $100 of risk. All of those things, what this means, what this pattern means, what 8 times risk means, all of those things are things that I'll try to explain to you tonight. So my itinerary for this evening, we're going to talk a little bit about what is day trading. I recognize that some of you may not have a lot of experience, or you're totally new to this thing called day trading. So I'll start at a basic level and describe what day trading is all about, tell you a little bit about my story, my approach to trading, how I measure performance, what my typical trading day looks like, the things that you need if you want to get into trading, the things that will help you succeed. And for those that have an interest in learning my method, I will teach you my approach, or I'll tell you how you can learn my approach. And then at the end, we'll talk about the income potential, just go through the economics of trading as well. Now, someone's saying you're not seeing my presentation. Sorry, I think I have to just fix that. There we go. My apologies. So just to wind back a little bit, the thing that I was showing you first was this chart here. And this is just a trade from today. The entry was there. And then there was another entry right about in there. And it made 8 times its risk. So for every $100 of risk, it made $800. $1,000 of risk, it made $8,000. But I'll explain all that because it's not as clear cut as that. And we'll go into that this evening, how that all works. Now, this is the itinerary for this evening. Talk about what is day trading, my story, how I approach day trading, how I measure performance, because that's really important to understand when we go into the economics of trading. Talk a little bit about my trading day, what you need to do if you want to become a trader, the things that will help you succeed. And they're not always that obvious. And again, I'll talk a little bit about how you can learn my approach for those that want to. And at the end, we'll go into the economics of trading and just talk about the income potential, how much money you need to make X. We'll go into that. All right, so let us begin. What is day trading? It is entering and exiting positions within a trading day. So the simple idea here is that, we buy in the morning typically, although not necessarily, it could be any time during the day, but we're always out at the end of the day. We go into the end of the day in cash. And that is a real benefit psychologically, because you don't have to worry about your stock, making a big drop the next day. It's actually easier to manage risk when you are day trading, because when you hold stocks overnight, there's some potential that the market will gap. So a stock could close at $10 and then the next day open at $8 if there was some bad news. Well, you can't sell it anywhere in between. Even if you had a stop loss, you're going to get, sold out at $8. So there is lower risk in day trading, but there's also more risk in day trading for emotional reasons. People can really hurt themselves if they don't know what they're doing, if they don't have good risk management and emotional control. And a big part of what I teach is how to manage the human being in you, which is really out to make you fail in trading. So the other thing, I guess, from my approach to day trading is I focus on stocks that are moving abnormally. I don't trade the same stocks every day. When I first started out trading, that's what I did. I had a short list of maybe 10 stocks that I traded every day, and it didn't really work all that well. In order to beat the market, you have to zoom in, focus on the stocks that are are in play. And every day there's a group of stocks that are in play. They are trading with abnormal volume, abnormal price activity, and they attract a crowd of people who cause that stock to move more than it perhaps should, because there's a crowd chasing that stock. And in doing so, they create opportunity, because emotion is a breakdown in market efficiency that we can take advantage of. Now, when I'm day trading, I tend to mostly buy, but we can also sell short. So if the market's having a bad day or a bad month, you can make money by making trades on stocks going lower. We call that short selling. So if you think Microsoft is going to go down, you can short sell it and sell it at 100 and something and buy it back $10 cheaper and make the difference. And I'm not going to go into that a lot. I'm not a real big fan of short selling because it tends to take more capital, or the stocks that are really worth short selling are very hard to short because you have to get what's called a borrow. You have to be able to borrow the shares from your broker, and that's not always easy. So when I trade, when I teach people to trade, I do teach short selling, but I don't myself do it a whole lot, and I sort of discourage people from doing it. For most people, it is difficult. Certainly, there's money to be made in it, but you need a few extra tricks. All right. So this is how my desk looks. You see I have all these screens, and it looks maybe a little bit impressive, but the reality is you don't need all those screens to day trade. I can day trade from my laptop, and I often travel with 2 laptops, and I do it remotely. But I do like having all the screens that I have, simply because it allows me to see a lot without having to move my mouse a lot. I don't have to jump from screen to screen like I would on my laptop. I can just do it all from this sort of console that I have, the bat cave, I like to call it. So my story, how did I get started in trading? I talked a little bit about this on Saturday. I started trading a little over 30 years ago. The first stock I bought was a penny stock in the energy sector. I lost money on it, but I kind of got hooked on the whole idea of buying and selling stocks to make money. I liked it better than working for a living, although this is still work. But I've always had a fascination with the markets from the moment that I first got into it. I've loved it. I do it when I'm on holidays. I do it in the evening. Sometimes I'm out mountain biking and I'm looking at the market on my phone. Like, I truly enjoy it. And I think that, that does have some benefit. If you really enjoy it, then you can do well at it. Now, along the way, I had hurdles. I started with really almost no money, but I slowly built it up. So, I started with about $3,000, but I lost a lot of that. And then I started to make a little bit of a comeback, and I borrowed some money from an uncle that I have, and again, lost a good chunk of that. And then started to get more knowledgeable and understand. And one thing you should keep in mind is when I started trading, there wasn't anyone to teach me. I had to figure it out myself. There weren't people like me who taught their method. There weren't a lot of books about trading the stock market. In fact, when I started, trading the stock market wasn't really a thing. Day trading of stocks wasn't really a thing. You could day trade futures a little bit, but even that was transaction costs were expensive, and you were at a real disadvantage not being on a trading floor. So, I started at a time when it was difficult to become a trader. Now there's, new challenges in this day and age because there's so many people doing it now. If you do what everyone else is doing, you're probably not going to be successful, and because there's just so much competition. So you have to be one step ahead. You have to have an edge. And my edge has always been that I just build better tools than other people. And I would say maybe I've got pretty good emotional control. But I don't use indicators that everyone else uses. I use my own. I don't use tools that everyone else uses. I use my own. And I let my tools and my indicators be available to a small number of people, which I'll talk about at the end tonight, but they're not things that you're going to find everywhere. Now, why do I love trading? Well, I've got there the 4 F's: flexibility, it's fun, freedom, and the financial gains. Trading is the most lucrative career in the world, probably in the history of mankind. There's, people that have turned, I think of Jim Simons, who started his hedge fund, his algorithmic trading firm called Renaissance Capital, with about $1 million when he was in his late 40s, I believe. Today he's in his late 70s, maybe even early 80s. I think his net worth is 12 to $15 billion. We've seen, people like Steve Cohen make $2-3 billion a year, Ken Griffin. There's some big names in the trading business who obviously aren't sitting at home. They're running big firms, but it really is, the most lucrative occupation in the world. And, it's one occupation where you can sit in your house and make a 7-figure income with just some computers and some knowledge. Now, you're not going to start there. And I really hate to talk about money because I don't want people to have those pie in the sky dreams of big money. And really the problem with that is you focus on the money, not on the process. And I always tell my students, get good at this first and then start worrying about making money. It's like anything else. It's a skill. It takes time to learn. But once you learn it, you can do it anywhere. I've had the good fortune of being able to live in Maui on the beach. I've lived in Whistler, which is, one of my favorite places on planet Earth. I've traveled to over 40 countries, and trading is the thing that has allowed me to do that. You can do it anytime. If I don't feel like trading one day, I don't have to. It's not like a normal job where you have to go. If you can't trade or don't want to trade, you want to go on a trip, turn off your computer. No big deal. Put all your money in cash and away you go. I find it fun. I know a lot of my students find it fun, but it's not for everyone. You have to enjoy analyzing things. And I think there's a certain competitive element that helps. You don't want to have a real emotional personality because that can make it difficult to control your money and that sort of thing. So anyway, those are a few of the reasons I think it's just such a great occupation. So my approach to trading is really more aligned with the big traders in the world, those what they're called algorithmic hedge funds that are managing billions of dollars. I use the same approach, and I've used that approach for probably 20, 25 years of my 30 years in trading. And essentially, I'm using algorithms to identify trades. So I don't make trades based on what I see on TV or what I read about or what I see in a chat room. I don't care what people say. I don't care about words. I care about action. I want to know what people are doing with their money. And I've written algorithms that sort of look at the money flow and look for where people are putting their money. I don't care what their mouth is saying. I want people to where their money is going. Put your money where your mouth is. And there's a lot of bias. There's a lot of promotion in the stock market. What matters really is what people do with their money. And it's the people that know the most, or the large funds that have the ability to make a market move. That is what I'm interested in. So I make trading decisions based on rules. I try to minimize human judgment. I don't want emotion to come into my equation. The current algorithms I use and the processes I use are, I would say, more sophisticated than 99% of retail traders out there. It doesn't mean that they're hard to understand. They really leverage computers. And obviously a computer can do much more from a calculation standpoint than we can as humans. And so I really rely on my computers. They monitor 7,000 stocks every day in real time, and they tell me a short list of stocks to look at. And that algorithmic approach and process has been, I have here 4 years, but it's really been longer than that. I started developing those computer models when I was living in Hawaii, and that was in 2016. So before that, I was still doing an algorithmic approach, but not on the same level that I use today. So how do I measure performance? So we're going to use something called the reward for risk ratio. And this is the key metric for how I judge performance of a trade or of a strategy. Our number one goal is capital preservation. We don't want to suffer big losses. We want to have decent profits. And we always have to make it our number one goal to preserve capital. So when I get a new student, of course, people that register for one of my courses, they want to get right out there and start making money right away. But it's sort of like, a person in med school saying, I want to get out there and start doing open heart surgery right away. And in that context, you would say, well, that's foolish. You need to practice. You need to learn. You need to maybe watch a pro for a little while. And it's no different with trading. And I've set up my education side of what I do around helping people to get to that goal of being a professional trader. It's something I enjoy. I've taught trading since I was 20 years old. I've always enjoyed teaching. I don't think I could be a school teacher, but I like teaching adults who have an interest in what I love. And the other thing is that really my teaching helps fund all of these tools that I build. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars building tools, and it doesn't make a lot of sense for me to do that just for me. But when I have, my small little group of followers that all contribute to the cost, when people pay $300 a year to use my website, that's buying those data feeds and paying programmers to build these things for me and that sort of thing. And my course fees, a lot of that goes into building new tools and that sort of thing. So now, how do you make money in trading? It's about expected value. You have to have smaller losses, big profits. You shouldn't focus on success rate. It's very common for people to think, well, I need to be right 80% of the time, because in school, being right 80% of the time is how you get an A. It's not that way in trading. I have met people, and this isn't really my approach, but I've met people who are right 10% of the time, and they still make big money. They just make small losses when they're wrong 90% of the time, and they make big profits when they are right 10% of the time. Now, my approach tends to be a little bit more along the lines of trying to be right 60 to 70% of the time, where my average profit is maybe 2 or 3 times the size of my average loss. And so if I do one trade, I can lose. I don't care about what happens on one trade. I care about what happens over 50 trades, 100 trades. And if I can be consistent and make money over 100 trades, then I've got a strategy that I can just scale up in terms of the risk that I apply to it and the money that I throw at it. And one of my great joys of trading is developing strategies. I love just sitting with Excel spreadsheets and these different tools that I have and trying to come up with new ways to pull money out of the market. And a lot of those things ultimately become strategies that I program into my websites, into the platforms I use, and share with my students. So this is, again, a trade. This one is one from today. And the core indicator for what I do is something called an action candle. Now, don't go to any website and try to find action candles, because they're not going to be anywhere. They're my own invention. And they're based on the idea that I've talked about in both of the last 2 webinars that I've done. And that is, we're looking for stocks trading with abnormal price movement and abnormal volume. And the idea here is that where you have that abnormal behavior, it's often a sign that there are traders that have better information, that are acting on that information, and they're telegraphing, they're leading us with knowing more than we do, and I just follow them. So on this XYF, it gave us our action candle there, and it's something called an optimized action candle, which my students will understand, but It's, basically the math is in good favor. So what I'm going to show you later on is these databases that I have where I evaluate this action candle signal over tens of thousands of trade signals, and we can adjust the values to find the very best action candles. And XYF was one today that triggered one of these optimized action candles. It did that at 9:42 Eastern time. And without knowing anything about this company, I just know mathematically it has a high probability of moving higher. And so, the buy signal was here at $5.30. The lower boundary, which is what we call our risk amount, it's a little hard to see, $5.15, which means if you bought 1,000 shares, the risk was $150. By the end of the day, the stock is at $6.50. So that 1,000 shares is making 1,000, what was it at? 650. So it's making $1,200. So on 1,000 shares, you're making $1,200 for $150 of risk. And that's where we get this 8 times risk multiple. See that? 8RR. Now these lines that are all plotted in here, that's all something that I've automated, programmed into a trading platform called TradeStation. And I show this during the trading day in a service I offer called Active Live. I'll talk more about Active Live later in the presentation. I just want to give you a sense of how my trading approach works. Again, it's not based on me having better information than anyone else. It's me following the money. And I use really powerful computers and sophisticated algorithms to get these things before the crowd. All right. So me and I call my followers my minions, although I don't know that my followers know that, but my students, my minions and we see these signals, we buy early in the day. And by the end of the day, the crowd starts to catch on to the story, and you can see that the stock really starts to get going. I don't want to be part of the crowd. I don't want to be, buying retail. I want to be buying wholesale. Okay. So my trading day is as follows. I don't do a lot of work before the market opens. Someone has asked the question, can you trade after market and before the market? Yes, you can. I do not generally. I mean, the odd occasion I will, but very rarely do I. But some people do, and many of my students do. I just personally find that liquidity drops a lot. How actively these stocks are trading goes down a lot in the aftermarket and in the pre-market. But I do an assessment of the market before it opens. And I don't do that a long time before it opens, 5 minutes before the market opens. I have a few things I look for. What is the trend of the market? Is it going to open up or down? Is it above the trend line, below the trend line? Is it overbought or oversold? And I have a little 2 or 3 minute discussion on my microphone in a webinar, much like we're doing now. I do a live webinar every day. It starts 5 minutes before the market opens, and I talk for the opening half an hour because that's the busiest time of the day. That's when most of the trade signals come. And so I walk my subscribers, my minions. I don't know if they like that. Maybe they don't. I think minions is a cool term, but maybe they don't. But I walk that group through what I see for the trading day and try to pick a few stocks and teach. The big part of what I do is teaching. I enjoy that. I teach more at the end of the day. The opening half an hour, it's really about identifying trades, reading the market, trying to give my insight based on my experience so that they can have a better trading day. A little bit of hand-holding. And then through the middle of the day, I'm looking for trades for a few different strategies. We do the day trader strategy, which leverages action candles. We have a strategy called a wave strategy, a superhero, an intraday pullback, a simple swing. So we're applying about 5 different trading strategies. And the one that you focus on really depends upon your schedule, your availability of time, your experience. The wave strategy maybe requires a bit more experience. The superhero is the strategy that right now is probably my favorite, just based on market conditions. And so I'm coaching telling my students which is the thing to focus on at any one time. But my goal really is to take human judgment out of it as much as we can. We can't take it out entirely, but we can go from 7,000 stocks down to, 100 stocks in a day that have some potential. And then that 100, we might whittle it down to 5 that actually give us a really good trade signal. Some days it's 10, some days it's 2, but it's a relatively small number of stocks that we trade every day. And those stocks have the best probability of success, and we focus on those. And a big part of what I teach is how to be fussy, to be selective, to not succumb to your emotion, to not have FOMO, the fear of missing out. So here is another big mover of the day, action candle there at the open. But this gave other signals. There's a little pullback break here. That's called a pullback play. There's another one there. They weren't ideal, but they were okay. There's another intraday pullback set up here. That one didn't make a lot, maybe a little bit. So, there's 3 or 4 potential trades on this stock during the day today. What's most important about this stock is that the volume traded today was higher than the volume that traded yesterday. And these are my favorite type of stocks. We call these super alpha stocks. They are trading abnormal volume. They are really in play. They're very actively traded, lots of people following them, and can really generate some of the best trades. All right, so another example from today. We'll go through a few here. This is another one that I picked up in the opening half an hour of the day. I gave this a score of 6.5 out of 10. So that's one of the things that I would call out in the webinar that I do every day. So SESN 6.5 out of 10, which means it's worth trading. And it gave a second signal right here when it broke above its action candle close. Again, my students will understand what that means. That was at about $1.21, and it was $1.47 within an hour, roughly. And so it's a nice quick move. Gave another potential trade in here, not quite ideal because it wasn't tall enough of a candle, so actually I wouldn't take that one. So anyway, those are all things that I teach and share. Here's another example. This stock, entry signal a little later in the day with an action candle breaking from a predictive pattern. That's my day trader strategy. And it goes on to a 7RR gain. So 7RR means for every $100 of risk, you make $700. If you risk $500, you make $3,500, so on and so forth. So what do you need to do this? One of the problems with stock trading is that there's no barrier to entry. Just about anyone can open a brokerage account. You have a little bit of money, open a brokerage account, they'll take your money. But that doesn't mean you know what you're doing. It really kind of sets you up for failure. If you want to be a doctor, you got to go to med school, and then you got to practice, and you're really not allowed to start doing dangerous things on people until you've been a doctor for a number of years and really a student of being a doctor for 10 years or more. You want to be a professional athlete, you might start playing hockey when you're 5. By the time you're 18, if you're really good, you might get into the pros. But certainly, you can't just go to watch a pro hockey game, jump over the boards with your stick and your helmet on, and start playing. That's obviously silly. And yet, people do that every day in the stock market. And somehow they think it's different because they read a book, they watch a YouTube video, and they think that it looks easy. Stock trading is simple, but it is not easy. And anyone who's ever done it for any length of time will confirm that. Now, if you've done it in a hot market, it will seem easy because, as the saying goes, rising tides lift all boats. And if you're in a hot market, then you can throw darts at a board and make money. The problem is you'll give it all back when that hot market cools down. And I've seen many people who call themselves day traders because they latched on to a strong trend in a sector like cannabis stocks or gold stocks or crypto, and they make a little bit of money in a short amount of time, and they think they know what they're doing. They quit their job, they buy or they lease a new fancy car, and then a year later that car is off to the repo man because they really didn't know what they were doing. And I'm not trying to be discouraging, I'm just trying to be realistic. If you want to trade the market long term as a career, you need to learn core skills. You need to understand the basics of how the market works. You need to know analysis, how to manage risk, how to manage money, how to develop strategy, the mechanics of actually trading, how you actually enter an order to buy, to sell, to adjust stops, to scale into a position. There's so many little things to learn. Now, my course material is 12 to 15 hours. It's not a lot. It takes practice, a couple months of practicing if you want to be a day trader at a minimum. The hardest thing for people to do is to manage emotion. I think most people can learn my rules pretty quickly with a little bit of effort. You probably learn them in a weekend if you really put the time and effort in. But managing your emotions so that you can follow the rules, well, that's another game altogether. And that's why I run these webinars every day, because there's just no replacement for repetition. Every day I say the same things over and over and over again. And eventually it starts to resonate. People start to, inhale that, because you can't trade my strategy. You have to make my strategy your strategy. You have to know it so well that it is yours. You have to understand the theory behind it, why it works, so that when you look at a chart and you look at these signals that we generate, you're not applying simply rules, you're applying true knowledge. And that takes some time to learn. And, in the old days when I started teaching, I would teach my course over a weekend, and, people then went on their merry way. They had my books, they had my videos, but they hadn't inhaled it and made it their own. And so nowadays, my teaching doesn't end with, going through my courses and videos. I teach every day. I do videos every week. And it's that ongoing teaching that will keep you learning and get you to your goals. Anyone that's here tonight can make $1 million a year in the stock market. There's nothing that stops you except knowledge, determination, and practice. That's all. There's people doing it. I have students making lots of money, but I also have students that fail. Why do they fail? Because they give up. They think it's easy. They're not managing their emotions. They don't put in the work to study the things that I tell them to study. If you want to succeed, just do what I tell you to do and work hard and be determined. And I will help those kind of people. I will help them for 10 years if they need it. It shouldn't take 10 years, but I enjoy doing that. I enjoy getting those emails from people saying, hey, I made $100,000 this month. Thank you. That's the kind of emails I want to get. But if you're not willing to put in the work, you're not going to get there. If you're not going to be emotionally controlled and listen to the lessons that I've learned the hard way, you're not going to get there. All right. So what do you need? You also need strategies. Now, I developed my own strategies because there was no one to give me theirs. But nowadays, people like me have developed strategies and we sell them. I make my strategies available to a small number of people a year, but I'll develop new strategies and strategies that I did 5 years ago that I kind of stopped doing for a while because the market conditions weren't right. I may start doing them again. My superhero strategy, I stopped doing that 4 or 5 years ago because the market really wasn't right for that strategy anymore. But what we've had since COVID is this influx of emotional retail traders, most of which don't know what they're doing. And my superhero strategy takes advantage of that. Now, before COVID, we had a market that was dominated by exchange traded funds, by algorithmic traders, by these big hedge funds. And that particular strategy didn't work very well. We had to do other things. So the reason I teach 5, 6 different strategies in my active trader course is because we have strategies for different market conditions. Now, what you need to understand is when I develop a strategy, it's not like something I do over the course of a weekend. There are hundreds, if not thousands of hours that go into developing these strategies. And I'll show you in a minute how these databases that I've built look. But they're well tested. They're based in very good theory. Some of the theories that I use have won Nobel Prizes in economics. Not by me. I've never won a Nobel Prize, trust me. But I know that the theories that I use have a good, strong basis in economic and financial theory. And really what I do is I leverage statistics. So when I develop a strategy, I build these big spreadsheets with all of this trade data in it. So I've just done a screen capture of one of my spreadsheets. And, I've got many of these sheets going back a few years, but there's tens of thousands of trade signals in these spreadsheets. And then I can optimize for different components of the strategy. So you see here, volume significance, price significance, action ticks. These are all components of my strategy, and we optimize on that. And when we optimize, we spit out statistics. So, you can see here, there was on this particular day, 12 trades between 9:30 and 10. They averaged 0.48 RR. The maximum average was 2.91. There's all these statistics in here. And we optimize for that so we can come up with a set of rules that work consistently over a large number of trades. And I share all that. If you're my active trader student, you get that spreadsheet. I spend, time every single day putting the data in. I use some pretty sophisticated tools to build that, and I share that with my active live students. Now, what else do you need? You need tools. If you want to beat the market, you need to have an edge. And my edge is that I've built better tools than most people. I use my own indicators. As I said before, I'm not using other people's tools. So for longer term trading, I use Stockscores, which is my website. For short-term trading, I use a tool called TradeStation, which is right here. And so TradeStation allows me to calculate my own algorithms. You see here this day trader finder. That doesn't come with TradeStation. That's something that I've had programmed into TradeStation by a couple of programmers that I've worked with. And it generates my trade signals. Now, a couple of you have asked me about HX. You can see that HX is at the top of my screen. It triggered a trade signal at 12:28. I was pretty nervous about this stock because it's gone straight up for the past week or two. But later in the day, it started to show strength again. And at 12:28, it triggered what we call an action candle. And by the end of the day, that stock had gone up 25 times its risk. So that's what you're looking at here is all the statistics. So to take $100 of risk on this particular trade would require 290 shares. 290 shares is $3,000 in capital. That's before margin. You might be able to margin that stock. And so, but let's say you can't margin it. That trade made $2,500 for $3,000 of capital. So it was really an awesome trade. But this morning I didn't like it. And I know one person here tonight was emailing me, asking me about it. And I said, it looks risky. I wouldn't touch it. But 3 hours later or 2 hours later, it was a different story because the chart changed, the situation changed. Now you can see as I hover over this, that this little window pops up and there's all these indicators there. Those are all components of that strategy. So it's not a simple thing. There's a lot of math going on in the background. And because computers are powerful nowadays and the algorithm's got some pretty cool things that it does, it really gives us an advantage. We can find these things before most people. So that's TradeStation. Many of my students use TradeStation as well. I make available some of my indicators, but there's other things that we do in Active Live, which is what this screen is. That's the Active Live screen, that are only for Active Live. So you don't have to have TradeStation. You can just be a follower in Active Live and maybe combine that with your own real-time charting program. So if you want to be a day trader, you need real-time charts. Brokers will give you real-time charts. If you trade enough, they should give those to you for free. If you don't trade a lot, they might charge you $30, $50 a month. TradeStation costs $99 US a month, plus exchange fees, which comes to about 110 US a month. It's a great tool. You know, if you're going to open a store, you got to have a storefront, and then you're selling stuff. I always think of TradeStation like the storefront. It's the tool we use to sell and buy and sell stuff. But again, you don't have to use TradeStation. It's a great tool. I think when you're starting out, maybe it's not the thing to use, but once you're a pro trader, TradeStation is my preferred tool, and I've used it for probably close to 20 years now. You need tools for order entry. So with your broker, you know, I use TradeStation for analysis. In the US, TradeStation is a broker, and you can trade through TradeStation. I live in Canada, and we can't have a brokerage account with a US broker. So I can only use TradeStation for analysis, and then I make the trades through a broker. And that's a little different than if you were in the US or other parts of the world where you can actually trade with TradeStation. I also do a lot of post-trade analysis. I use Excel, I use Word. I do all the heavy lifting for you if you are wanting to understand my data, my spreadsheets. You don't have to, know Excel really well. You have to know it a little bit, but I've built those spreadsheets for you. I have some of my students who are much better with Excel than I am, and they often send me some of their analysis, and it's very helpful. I'm a good user of Excel, but I'm by no means an expert. But to use my spreadsheets, someone's asking, do you have to be a power user of Excel? And no, you don't. You have to understand some basic stuff, but I've done lots of videos on how to use what I've built. You can also use Word to, keep your trading journal. There's websites for trading journal. And then we have a really great tool, and that is Active Live, where you can just watch my screen. So this is what my screen looks like. Actually, I'll show you a better example here in a second. But Active Live is, you're watching my analysis screen. I'll show you how it looks in a minute. And it calls out, there's little bells that ring when there's a new trade signal. So that is what you need in terms of tools. Then you have to have process. A strategy is great, but if you don't have a step-by-step process to find the trades in a timely way, it doesn't really matter what tools you have, what rules you have, what strategies you have. And I think a lot of people overlook this. You have to be able to catch these trades in time. And a big part of what I teach, and I think the thing that takes a little bit more time for people to learn, or at least to be good at, to do it fast, is process. And it's, I do the same thing over and over and over again, and I've become very fast at that. But in your first week of trading, you may understand the steps in the process, but you're not going to be good at it yet. The first time I went skiing, I wasn't good at it, but now I can ski down a hill. And that's because I've practiced. And it's no different with trading. You got to practice. So I'll give you the rules. I'll give you the tools. I'll give you the process. I will hold your hand as you learn, but you still got to practice. Don't have any illusions that you're going to wake up on Monday morning and make, $1 million a year because you understand my rules. It takes more than that. And I always try to be realistic because I want people to be successful, but I want them to come in with realistic expectations. My process is very mechanical. It's based in logic. It's efficient. It uses tools, and it tries to take emotion out of it as much as possible. So in terms of steps, we start with determining the market factor. Is the market helping us or hindering us, or not either? Sometimes the market's not helping or hindering. And if the market's helping, then we have a little bit different process than if the market is working against us. Based on that, we then scan the market for our action candles, but we favor certain strategies based on market factor. Today market factor was positive. So we did, why is my battery running low here? Hopefully that's not gonna, my computer is plugged in, but it doesn't seem to be charging. Let me just check this for a second. Hold on a moment. I don't want this to end suddenly because, so just bear with me for a moment. I want to make sure that this computer's charging. Yeah, it is plugged in now. I think maybe it was just a bad connection. So we'll bring this back in just a second here. Where am I? Okay. If for some reason this computer dies, I'll be back in a second. I have another laptop that I can hook up. So if for some reason I disappear for a second, just give me a couple of minutes. I'll be back. So you need capital. Generally, whatever your risk tolerance is, multiply that by 100. So if you're willing to risk $50 per trade, then you need about $5,000 of capital. If you want to risk $1,000 per trade, that's a much bigger game. You need $100,000 of capital. I do not recommend that anyone start with a large amount of capital. I don't care if you have $10 million to put in the market. Start with $5,000 because it takes time to learn, and your number one goal is capital preservation, and that just takes some time. So I say here, start with $1,000 of risk. That's because I want you to practice first. I want you to learn. I've built a simulator. It's free to use at my other website, tradescores.com. And using that simulator and things like Excel, you can practice paper trading. And as you are successful with those tools, now you can start to use real money. But don't start with real money in the beginning. That's like a doctor starting with a real scalpel and a real human in the beginning. No, you learn first. You practice on, I don't know what they do, cadavers or whatever, frogs, right? You practice first, and you don't get to touch the real market for a little while until you've proven that you know what you're doing. Now, I have lots of my students who ignore that advice, and that's fine if you want to, but I'll always help you. Just realize I really encourage you to start small and increase your risk with success and decrease your risk with failure. Now, what are some of the things that will help you succeed? Well, first is the recognition that trading is simple but not easy. I've tried to convey that tonight. My rules are simple. The rules for these strategies, there's 4 or 5 rules. They're not complicated. But managing your emotions, that's not easy. Practice, that takes time and effort. You need to walk before you run. In order to be successful, you have to practice, you have to focus, you have to have determination, discipline. Don't be a gambler. If you want to be a gambler, go to the casino. At least there, they'll give you free drinks. Stock market doesn't give you free drinks if you're a gambler. It just punishes you. And you might get successful in the short term. You might get lucky. But trust me, in the long term, you won't be successful if you are a gambler. So how do you become a day trader? Well, you can do what I did. My approach was to develop and test my own strategies. It took me about 8 years and a lot of expensive lessons before I was successful. The other option, which I'm presenting to you tonight, is to have me teach you my method, benefit from my 30 years of experience, and learn the approach from me. We do that through the Education Center. I showed this in last night's video. I won't spend a lot of time on this tonight because we're running out of time, but I will go into this in more detail on Saturday. I will give you a tour of the Education Center, how it works. But essentially, all of my rules and background knowledge is online. You watch videos, you read lessons, and then you can be a subscriber to the investor area, which is my investor strategies, which we talked about last night, or you can do the day trader approach, the swing trader approach, which I call active trading. And again, everything is online. You get access to my knowledge, to my tools, to my support from me directly, and my real-time indicators for TradeStation are included. You're eligible for that active live service. It's all part of the active trader course. It also, if you're an active trader member, makes you eligible for my active live service. It's a relatively small group of people every day who watch my analysis screen, who listen to me talk through the opening half an hour and the final half an hour of the day. This is what the active live screen looks like. I just did a screen capture from today. Whoops, what happened here? We have different windows in here. So this is my day trader strategy window. It's giving us action candles in real time. This is the wave strategy window that focuses on the most abnormal stocks. This is the intraday pullback strategy window. This is the superhero and intraday pullbacks window. So is this one actually. This is the swing trader window. Not everyone wants to day trade. If you don't want to spend as much time and effort on the market, then you're going to focus on this for swing trading. But it's all automated. My computers are doing most of the work, and we get the signals this way. And if you're an active trader member of Stockscores, then you are eligible to watch this screen during the trading day. It's open every day. Now, another option, which I didn't talk a lot about last night, but I'll talk about a little bit more tonight, is my mentorship program. And I think the mentorship is really more appropriate for the person who wants to be an active trader, day trader or swing trader. And essentially what I'm doing here is I'm taking you through the material personally, an hour a week. 1 week we do 3 hours, but basically 14 classes over the course of 12 weeks. Now this year, because we're running into Christmas, we take a couple weeks off over Christmas. But basically it's 12 weeks spread out over from now until the first week of February, starting Tuesday, November 9th. I walk you through the strategies, the processes, capital preservation, emotional control techniques, answer your questions as they come up in these 1 hour classes. Just a lot more hand-holding. I find that most people procrastinate a little bit. Most people need that little bit of motivation, and the mentorship program is a good way to do that. So if you have aspirations of making a living trading the stock market, lots of people are working from home now, and COVID has certainly changed the dynamic where more and more people are trading the market. And so this is, if you just want to get up and learning as fast as possible, I recommend the mentorship program. If you want to be managing your retirement portfolio, or you're not yet ready to be a full-time trader or have aspirations of that, then mentorship's probably not the way to go. It is limited to 20 students. We have 5 spots currently open, and actually we might have one less, because I think we might have 4 because somebody registered earlier today. So anyway, it's 4 or 5. Now I complement my live or my online training with live training, and that starts in November, first week of November. I will walk you through what I call the foundation material, which is your theory. We're going to do that 2 classes at 6 p.m. Pacific time, Monday and Tuesday, November 1st and 2nd. That'll give you your theoretical base. I'll teach you how to read charts, risk management, where stops go, that kind of stuff. And then for the next 3 days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, again, at 6 p.m. Pacific each night, I will practice with you. I will show you the process for the investor strategies. So it's not day trading, it's the investor strategy. Now with the Active Trader course, you also get a free month of Active Live. And all of these sessions, the overview class, the investor sessions, those are all recorded. So all those classes in November are recorded. So if you can't come on Tuesday, November 2nd, because it's pickleball night, no problem. That is saved as a video, so you can watch it as many times as you want. Now, the special offer is that you can get all of that added material for free if you are registered for either course by Friday, October 29th at 11 p.m. So the investor course includes the overview and the investor market scanning. The active trader course includes the overview, the investor, market scanning, and the active trader live for a month. And the mentorship includes all of those as well. Okay, course pricing. This is all Canadian dollars. $2,495 for the investor course, $3,495 for the active trader course, and mentorship is $5,495. If you've already done the active trader course, you can upgrade for $2,000. I'll show you how in a minute. If you've already done the investor course and you want to upgrade to the active trader course, you can do that for a $1,250 fee. If you then want to upgrade to the mentorship, you can do that as well. The way you do that is go to Stockscores.com, go to Trader Training, learn how to trade. This is where you sign up for the investor or active trader course. If you've already done those courses, let's say you want to take the mentorship, or let's say you haven't done the active trader. First, you want to register for the active trader. You just go here, order active trader. It'll give you instant access. Log out of the website, log back in, you'll have access. And then if you then want to upgrade to the mentorship, go to upcoming events and go down to the bottom of the page where it says Stockscores Active Trader Mentorship. The prerequisite here is active trader. You can see that's the prerequisite. So you have to first be registered for active trader, and then you can upgrade to the mentorship. Okay. I'll talk more about that on Saturday. Saturday, we have our last webinar of this year, and I'll go into that. I'm just going to launch a poll now. If anyone would like an email with a little bit of follow-up information, you should see on your screen now a poll. And if you wouldn't mind just answering that, if you don't want me to bug you, just say no thanks, and I will not bug you. Simple. But if you would like an email with a little bit more information, just click off what you're most interested in. Some people are interested in everything, but just click off the thing you're most interested in, and I will make sure you get information on that. Okay, I'll leave this up for another 20 seconds or so, and then we can take questions. So if you have any questions, go ahead and ask. I do see one question that I haven't answered yet, and that is, does TradeStation work with Canadian stocks? And the answer is no. TradeStation does not cover Canadian markets. So it covers all the US markets and some of the global markets, but for some reason they don't track the Canadian markets. Okay, I'm going to take the poll down. Thanks for voting or casting your results there. Close that down. There we go. So any questions, and then we'll get into just the economics. I'm going to walk through a trade. While we're doing that, while I'm waiting for questions to come in, there's the sort of the details, how to register for the course. Here is my contact information. If you have any questions, just email me. There's my email address, tylerb@stockscores.com.